The knocking starts at 4:11 a.m. Not frantic. Not urgent. One knock, then silence. 30 seconds. Another knock. 30 seconds. Another. You already know this isn't random. The street outside the rented stucco house is empty, no cars moving, no dogs, no headlights dragging across the wall. Just the dark, and the heat coming off the concrete, and that knock again. Patient as a metronome. Patient as someone who is very, very certain you are awake. You open the door. A white bakery box sits on the step. No delivery man. No car pulling away. Just the box, dead center on the mat, a red bow tied around it like a birthday gift from a world that has no birthdays in it. Inside the box, a burner phone, still wrapped in factory plastic, and a photograph. You recognize the crosswalk. You recognize the yellow backpack. You recognize the woman holding your daughter Solina's hand, Inara, her braids loose, her coat the one she wears on cold Albuquerque mornings, her free hand half raised as if she's about to say something. Solina is looking at something off to the left. There's the faint outline of her inhaler case, pressed against the inside of her coat pocket. The photo is clear. Taken from distance. Taken with patience. The burner phone rings before you can breathe. A woman's voice. Calm the way still water is calm, because nothing is moving underneath it yet. She says, asterisk, you have until Friday to prove where your loyalties are. Asterisk. She hangs up. The street outside doesn't change. The dark doesn't change. The stucco walls and the dead cactus by the mailbox and the thin line of orange beginning somewhere east of El Paso, none of it changes. But something has shifted in the air, the way air shifts before a weather system arrives that the forecast didn't predict. You stand in the doorway holding the bakery box until the sky turns gray. And by the time the sun finally clears the ridge, you realize the most frightening part of this. They are not wrong to suspect you. You are not the man in the room. You are the man who arranged the room. Soren Varela. 41. No record. No tattoos. No dramatic backstory worth dramatizing. You book motel rooms under names that sound like someone's unremarkable cousin. You rotate 2007 Camrys and 2009 Corollas, beige, gray, silver, cars that cameras catch once and never remember. You handle backup phones, safe apartments, timing changes, emergency reroutes. You sequence problems the way an air traffic controller sequences landings, by anticipating where everything breaks before it breaks. Men with power get remembered. Men like you survive by being invisible. The descent, when you trace it honestly, took 3 years and felt like nothing at each step. Roofing injury at 36, L4 compression, 2 surgeries, workers' comp that took 18 months to deny. Sleeping in your pickup outside Albuquerque while Inara worked double shifts at the hotel laundry. Solina had 3 asthma attacks that winter. You remember the sound of her chest at night, the way it caught and stuttered. Your cousin Davio mentioned storage support. Moving things from one location to another. Temporary. Just until the comp appeal went through. The appeal never went through. But you were frighteningly good at this. Not at violence, you've never been the violence. Your skill is crisis sequencing. Anticipating the 11 p.m. call that means a truck needs rerouting before dawn. Knowing which 2 roads are being watched and which 4 aren't. Understanding that in a system built on paranoia and pressure, the most dangerous man is the one who stays calm and counts steps. The organization likes people who solve problems without asking moral questions. You told yourself you never crossed the worst lines. You told yourself logistics isn't the same as the other thing. You repeated this so many times it stopped feeling like a lie and started feeling like accounting. By noon on Wednesday, you learn what Friday is connected to. A woman named Yaret Kells. Missing for 11 days. Yaret handled timing windows and secondary placement across the Chihuahua and Sonora corridors. She was not loud. Not ambitious in the ways that got people noticed. She kept her head down, sent $320 to her disabled brother in Phoenix every Tuesday at 6:10 p.m. without fail, and spoke in meetings like she had already done the math before anyone else had finished the question. Which is why her disappearance is not a personnel problem. It is the beginning of something worse, an internal audit disguised as a cleanup. You know this because you know how the bookkeeping works. Someone in upper management has been siphoning protection payments, reclassifying losses, bleeding the numbers in a way that requires a very specific kind of competence to hide. Yarrett had that competence. Yarrett found the discrepancy. Yarrett said nothing to anyone. Or so they thought. You remember her eyes. Sharp and small, moving fast in a way her face never did. You remember standing near her at a distribution point in Las Cruces 14 months ago, both of you waiting for a handoff that was running late. She'd had 2 drinks. She said something, quiet, almost offhand, something about knowing where a certain problem was really buried. You laughed. She didn't. You pretended not to hear it. It was easier. Now you are reconstructing the sentence she said in fragments. Each piece assembles into something larger and more dangerous than you want it to be. Quiet people become dangerous precisely when they know where records are buried. If Yarrett ran, she had a reason. If she was taken, and 3 of the 6 ways she could have been taken point towards someone inside the operation, then everyone who ever worked alongside her is now standing closer to the edge than the edge looks from here. 3 months ago, she hinted she had copied something. Hidden it somewhere only someone like you would know to look. You pull out the burner phone. You don't dial. Not yet. Thursday. You act like it's nothing. You text Inara about traffic on I-25. You pick up Solina's refilled inhaler from the Walgreens on Central, 2 inhalers, the spare goes in your jacket pocket. You keep your face neutral around the men who are now quietly studying you, the way men in systems like this study anyone who might be calculating something they can't see. Inside, every hour feels rented. That night, you drive to Las Cruces. 247 miles. 2 hours and 40 minutes at the speed you drive, which is 3 miles below every limit because nothing ends a route faster than being memorable. Wind comes through the desert sharp enough to cut. The mini-golf complex off Highway 70 closed 2 years ago, all the windmills still standing, turning in the dark like they're waiting for a game that nobody is coming to play. You find the abandoned HVAC unit at the northeast corner of the property. The enclosure is padlocked. You have the second key because you always have the second key to anything Yarrett needed someone to have. You work with a small flashlight held in your teeth. Every sound, witnessed. The gravel under your shoe. The creak of the enclosure hinge. Somewhere across the lot, a can rolling in the wind. You wait 6 seconds after each noise before moving. Old habit. The kind of habit that has kept you alive. The drive is inside a waterproofed case, wrapped in 2 layers of electrical tape. Heavy for its size. You pocket it without looking at it. Back in the car. Engine on. No headlights for 300 yards. You open the files at 2:17 a.m. in a motel room in Deming, on a laptop that has never touched a network. Route records. Payoff tallies. 18 months of internal disputes. Emergency relocation notes. 7 offshore holding accounts linked to 4 names you recognize. And then, the last file, the one Yarrett labeled with no name, just a date, that one stops being about product entirely. It shows you the storage companies. The ones everyone called innocent bystanders, coerced participants, unwilling middlemen. For companies across Texas, Nevada, and New Mexico. Not coerced. Not spectators. Active facilitators who built their plausible deniability on purpose, with attorneys, with shell structures, with board decisions documented in ways designed to be found and found insufficient. The truth is worse than you expected. Friday arrives in the dark. You lie on the motel bed without sleeping. You already understand, this meeting was never meant to test your loyalty. It was meant to measure your disposal value. Cheap carpet the color of something that used to be green. Fluorescent humming that you feel in your back molars. A single water stain spreading across the ceiling like a country being drawn on a bad map. The office above the closed dental practice on Missouri Avenue smells like fresh paint and old decisions. 3 people waiting inside. The regional financier, Camilo Rueda, sits at the table with his jacket on, which means he wants the meeting to feel brief. His hands are flat on the table. He has the particular stillness of a man who has learned that stillness communicates power more efficiently than movement. The enforcer, whose name you have never asked because you understood from the first day that not knowing was the correct answer, stands near the window. He doesn't look at you when you enter. That's worse than if he had. And then, in the chair to the left of the table, Garrett Kells. Alive. Bruised below the left eye, a small butterfly bandage at the corner of her mouth. Composed in the way she has always been composed, like she ran the math before entering the room. She looks at you when you walk in. Her expression does not change. The room becomes a chessboard. Nobody says the most important things directly. Rueda asks you about Tuesday's consignment. You answer. He nods. He asks whether you've had any contact with anyone outside normal channels this week. You say no. He nods again. Garrett watches you the whole time. You understand, she may know about the drive. You don't know if she's telling him what she knows. You don't know if she cut a deal and this is the confirmation process. You don't know if she is pretending to have cut a deal and is waiting for something she needs from inside this room. What you know is that the enforcer's silence is more exhausting than any threat he could make aloud. Rueda asks you a question that has no safe answer, whether you are with her, against her, or still useful enough to keep breathing. You take exactly 2 seconds longer than you should before speaking. You don't choose. You redirect. Not dramatically. Not with a speech. You point out an inconsistency in the January seizure report, vehicle class logged as F-250 fleet, but the insurance filing lists compact cargo. A $14,000 discrepancy in one line of a document that nobody was supposed to notice. You ask, calmly, why that particular correction was never filed with the Nevada Corridor compliance sheet. Rueda's eyes move to the enforcer. The enforcer looks at Rueda. Garrett looks at the table. For 90 seconds, the room belongs to confusion instead of power. That is all you need. You mention, still calm, still seated, still sounding like a man who is simply working through an administrative matter, that if the internal cleanup moves too fast, the Nevada storage corridor gets flagged before the shell transfer completes. You mention this like it's a concern you share. Like you are all on the same side of this problem. You are not improvising. This is why you lasted. Your strength was never dominance. It is control of timing. In systems built on paranoia, confusion is oxygen, it keeps everyone breathing but nobody moving in a direction that hurts you. You weaponize the detail because the detail is the only language this room speaks without violence. They don't know you've already moved. While you were sitting in the Deming Motel at 5 a.m., before driving to Missouri Avenue, you set a release sequence in motion. Not through some elaborate technical operation, through practical redundancies prepared at dawn. 3 copies. 3 separate hands. 3 separate directions. The financier leans back. He is beginning to suspect you are not improvising. He is right. But suspecting and knowing are 48 hours apart. By the time they understand what you have done, the first copy of the drive is already moving towards someone who exists entirely outside this system. No speech. No courtroom moment. No dramatic declaration from a windswept hill. The first copy reaches Marcus Delgado, an investigative journalist in Albuquerque, through Inara's cousin Paz, who knows him from 3 years of community board work. Marcus is careful, not reckless, not a hero, just a man who has been waiting for documentation that could survive scrutiny. He gets the drive at 11:40 a.m. The second copy goes to Elena Fuentes, a civil attorney who has filed 9 institutional liability suits in the past 4 years and won 6 of them. She opens the folder marked with the date at 2:15 p.m. The third copy reaches a compliance investigator inside a federal agency you will not name, through a channel that took you 4 months to quietly map. That copy arrives at 4 p.m. By evening, 3 conversations are happening in 3 separate cities that none of the participants know are connected yet. And then, nothing dramatic. That is what nobody tells you about exposure. It doesn't explode. It spoils. Slowly, from within, the way meat turns in heat. On Thursday morning, 2 contracts pause. By Friday, an insurance company requests documentation on a Nevada facility that hasn't been asked for documentation in 6 years. One of the 4 storage company boards schedules an emergency meeting. A partner in Houston starts using a disposable law firm he found 12 hours earlier. Someone who has been untouchable for a decade looks, in a photograph taken at a public event, simply tired. The system does not collapse neatly. That is the part that keeps you cold. When systems begin to curdle, they don't collapse in an orderly line toward the people responsible. They reach toward whoever is closest. And you, Soren Varela, forgettable logistics man, invisible architect, you are very, very close. For 1 hour on Friday afternoon, watching the signals move through the networks you have been reading for years, you think it might actually work. Then you realize the first people you need to move are not yourself. They are Inara and Solina. You call her at 6:22 p.m. You don't give her the full truth. You don't have to. Inara has been hearing danger in your voice since before you were honest enough to put it there. She went quiet in the way she goes quiet when she has already decided what to do and is simply waiting for you to catch up to her. She doesn't forgive you. She wants you to hear that clearly. The silence between 2 sentences carries 7 years of exhausted love, old resentment, the specific and irreparable weight of a man who kept saying temporary long after temporary had become permanent. She doesn't forgive you. But she understands urgency. This is what good parents share even when everything else has broken down. You walk her through it in pieces: alternate pickup from school, a specific cousin's car, a motel outside Santa Fe that you have rented under a name she has never heard. A burner she activates once she's inside the room. Food. Solina's medication, 2 weeks of it, already packed in a kit you sent 3 months ago when the feeling first went past a certain threshold. Solina notices everything. You know this about your daughter: she is 8 years old and she reads rooms the way adults read faces. She asks Inara if they are going on a trip. Her voice is careful in the exact way a child's voice gets careful when she is trying to decide whether to be worried. Inara says yes. An adventure trip. Solina doesn't ask any more questions. Which is worse? You watch the truck on Griggs Avenue from 2 blocks back. A white F-150, idling outside a tire shop that closed 3 hours ago. You have been watching it for 11 minutes. It has not moved. After Inara confirms they are inside the room, 3 knocks, pause, 2 knocks on the burner, you exhale once. Full and slow. The way you breathe when you've moved a problem from one column to another and bought yourself a window. Then you see the white F-150 again. Same street. Different corner. Same truck. Your window may already be closed. Grants, New Mexico. Population 8,800. A maintenance job at a highway-adjacent motel that pays $14.40 an hour and asks nothing. You wake at 5:45 a.m. because your body will not let you sleep past that. You drink bad coffee from a machine in the maintenance bay. You wear a thrift store jacket that is 2 sizes too large. You have a name that is not your name. You have a phone registered to that name. You have a bank account with $2,300 in it, which is not enough and is everything. Nothing cinematic. That is the cost. That is what survival looks like when you strip away the idea that survival is supposed to feel like something. The fallout arrives in fragments. Rueda resigns from 2 companies in the same week. Not publicly, quietly, through attorneys, through amended filings, through the kind of departure that is designed to look routine and reads as panic to anyone who knows where to look. A facility in Henderson, Nevada is visited by a federal team on a Tuesday morning that the local news briefly covers and then does not follow up on. Yarrett disappears again, not taken this time, at least not that you can verify. The enforcer becomes rumor. Someone saw him in Nogales, someone saw him in Guadalajara, nobody saw him after that. People who looked untouchable look tired. But you do not feel safe. Surviving a system is not the same as escaping the psychology the system built inside you. You check every mirror twice, not once, twice, before pulling out of any parking space. You count trucks. White trucks, especially. You measure how long a car idles before deciding it's nothing. You notice pauses in phone calls that last 1 second longer than they should. You wake at 3 a.m. for no reason you can name. Just awake. Listening to the motel HVAC and the highway and the desert silence underneath both. Silence has lodged inside your body like an old injury that never properly healed. Some days you almost forget it's there. For 3 days in mid-November, the quiet almost feels real. Then one night at a gas station on Route 122, headlights off, engine running, a truck idles on the far side of the lot longer than anyone idles who is simply buying something. You are living under a name that is not your name in a place that should feel safe. The borrowed name is Anthony Reyes. 41. Maintenance worker. No record. No tattoos. No one in Grants who has known him longer than 6 months. He is, in every practical sense, a man that no system should be looking for. And still, some nights, you are certain something is watching. Maybe it is. Maybe the cleanup is still in motion and you are a loose thread that someone with patience is following to its end. Maybe it's the truck from Tuesday, which is probably nothing. Probably a delivery driver waiting out a rain delay. Probably someone on a phone call who forgot to drive away. Maybe it is only this: the system you served for 5 years did not live only outside you. You built it inside yourself, too. The hypervigilance. The mirror checking. The cataloging of every vehicle by color and make. The instinct that says trust no stillness because stillness was always where the next problem was hiding. You cannot uninstall that. You reflect on this without dramatic weight, the way you reflect on a roofing injury that changed the angle of everything, not with rage, but with the flat recognition that some events do not lead back to a before. The real work was never about being the strongest man in the room. It was about timing. Paperwork. Reading the silence correctly. And knowing the moment silence becomes complicity. You did not know that moment when it arrived. Or you knew it and called it something else. Inara took Solina to her sister's house in Tucson. You know they are there. You know Solina started 3rd grade in a new school and has not had an asthma attack since September. You know this through a channel that is 3 steps removed from anything that could be traced. You know it the way you know everything now, carefully, at a distance, with the constant awareness that knowing something connects you to it. You don't think about justice. Not in the way the word is usually meant. You think about Friday. How that word arrived with a deadline inside it. How deadlines are the architecture of pressure. How you spent years building pressure sequences for other people and then, one morning at 4:11 a.m., found yourself standing inside one. The truck on Route 122 was probably nothing. The gravel outside your window at 12:47 a.m. is probably wind. You do not move toward the door. You lie still. You listen. Some knocks never end. They simply wait. If this hit you, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe for the next one.